Hello, and welcome to Setting the Standard, brought to you by the Wireless Innovation Forum. I'm your host and Communications Director of the Forum, Stephanie Hamill. Today, I'm talking with CommScope's Mark Gibson, who chairs the Forum's 6 GHz Committee. Recently, a larger 6 GHz Multistakeholder Group has been formed as well, combining the Forum's membership horsepower with the WiFi Alliance and the broader industry stakeholders to tackle an aggressive timeline to operations in the band. Today, Mark will explain the background and get into how the groups work together. Hi, Mark. Thank you for joining me today.
Hey, Stephanie. Hi. It's great to be here. Thanks.
Good. So today I'm talking to you about the 6 GHz band and the Forum's involvement in it.
Forum got involved back the first meeting we had was a kickoff meeting in July of last year, where we brought all the stakeholders together that were of interest in the WinnForum, and then some on the outside, to sit around and ideate, think about why we should make a 6 GHz group. Even before that, so that probably when the commission issued when we knew the rulemaking was imminent, which actually was probably around, I'd say probably maybe earlier that year, so probably in January even of last year, that between 2019. We decided to sort of do an exploratory on it, leading then to the meeting we had in July 31st, I believe it was, that kicked off the whole discussion about the WinnForum standing up a 6 gig committee. And out of that, we put together a charter, and I believe the charter was approved by the board in August of last year, and we've been charging forward, ever since. So we got started pretty early on in the scheme of things, and have been charging ahead, like I said, ever since.
Okay, so what's the committee doing now, and can you explain the 6 GHz committee of the Forum as well as the 6 GHz multi-stakeholder group, which is a different group, and can you kind of explain the differences in the goals of each?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's a good question. So let me start with the WinnForum. The WinnForum 6 gig committee started with just a committee. It was a committee that met bi-weekly, and before the rulemaking actually came out. So the rulemaking came out in June of this year. It was finalized in June of this year. And before that, we met as a committee to try to help influence the rulemaking. Not so much that we wanted to advocate anything, but we wanted to inform, I should say, the rulemaking with respect to things like propagation modeling, and interference protection criteria, and things like that. So the committee worked on a couple. We had 2 contributions to the commission in the form of ex parte filings to just put on the record the work that we've been doing, in hopes that they would use it in their deliberations for the ultimate rulemaking. And so beginning, when the group first formed in July last year, we identified the gaps, if you will, or the areas of that needed to be dealt with. And then we just rolled up our sleeves and started on it. And so the first thing we did was a document to describe interference protection criteria and propagation modeling. We got that through ballot. That was a technical report, I believe. And then from that, we filed that with the FCC. After that, we turned our attention then to a technical report on requirements for the AFC. Basically just saying, look, if the commission's going to do an AFC, you should deal with the following. We got that out of ballot at the end of the year last year, and we filed at the commission either late last year or early this. And then the NPRM came out shortly after that, and so we feel like some of that got on the rulemaking. And out of that, as things advanced and the rulemaking came out and we had a chance to deal with it, we've ultimately ended up with actually it's 4 committees per se. One of them is a steering group, which we actually have to drive the product or drive the work. Another is a plenary, a technical plenary, which was the meetings that we've been having. And then there's 2 other really technical committees. One is a committee on interference analysis. Basically, it's a working group on interference analysis, and then we have a technical committee or a technical group on our task group on data. And so those guys have been meeting, and so and that has sort of overtaken the need to have the technical plenary. So that's what the WinnForum is doing, and I won't get into the details about the specifics just yet. The multi-stakeholder group was stood up as a requirement from the FCC's rulemaking. The commission made it a suggestion, and not a requirement, obviously. that industry form a multi-stakeholder group. And they used a couple of suggestions, actually, the WinnForum had put together. To the extent that we put any advocacy into the positions we made, one of them was, look, we have a lot of experience with CBRS as a multi-stakeholder group. You should think about that. And so they did. And we got what we asked for, and so they suggested, forming a multi-stakeholder group. They didn't put a lot of guardrails around the multi-stakeholder group. They just said, here's some things you need to look at, and whatever else you want to do. So Lee and I met with members of the Wi-Fi Alliance, which had kind of been doing the same thing, and throughout the early parts of the summer, going into July this year, and worked on how together we might stand up a multi-stakeholder group. And that actually, the first meeting for that was July 31st, almost a year after the WinnForums group was set up. One thing led to another, and now the multi-stakeholder group has been established. There's a member of the WinnForum that co-chairs, along with 3 members of industry, one of which is on Wi-Fi Alliance. And within the multi-stakeholder group now, we've defined what's called workstreams. And there's 3 work streams. The first work stream deals with interference, identification, and determination and remediation. This is basically how do we deal with interference when it's found. That was chaired by a member of the, I can't remember who chairs that. And then there was a work stream on data that I co-chair along with a gentleman from an organization called APCO, which is a public safety group. And that's data, like I said. And then there's a third work stream, which is interference analysis as part of the AFC. And so the respective chairs of those 3 work streams have decided when they should meet. And we've had a series of meetings. And so the multi-stakeholder group is really, little by little, moving down the road, developing whatever is needed, then that goes into the respective standards bodies to the extent that those things need to be turned into standards. And so that's very high level how the industry is coming together around the AFC and the role the forum is playing.
Right. Yeah, that's a great synopsis. It's a lot of people and a lot of stakeholders and a lot of work being done. With this much involvement, what are you seeing as like a timeline moving forward in terms of being able to utilize the band?
Well, that's a good question. A lot of the timeline was initially driven by the industries, the Wi-Fi industry, I should say the unlicensed industry's desire to have devices ready for the market by the end of the next year. I understand that they tried to catch the holiday cycles, and so they wanted them by the holiday cycle for 2021, which is rather aggressive, given where we are with the development of things. So we've stood up the multi-stakeholder group in earnest. We had the first real meeting about it just a few weeks ago, which is not to say that the work can't continue apace separately, but whatever role the multi-stakeholder group has in this, it's going to need to drive that timeline. But like I said, right now we're working toward the desire to have an AFC certified and in place by the end of the year next year, which is really aggressive. So the question is whether that timeline is going to be driven more by just what needs to be done to get the AFC going versus the industry's desire to have standard power access points available by next Christmas. If it doesn't have that, then I'm not sure what holiday cycle comes after that, or maybe they'd wait till the following, into the following year, or sometime in the middle of next year. So all of us that have been involved with this from the beginning, and also have the experience, for example, from CBRS, understand that just because you have an aggressive timeline doesn't necessarily mean you're going to make it. So we'll see. I'd say, like I said, the end of the year is highly aggressive given where we are. So I would not be surprised if it gets pushed into 2022, and we'll just have to see how things come. In the middle of all that, or not in the middle, what has to happen is we have to have specifications. There has to be, the commission actually has to come up with some things, among which is a certification program. We have to identify who would be doing the certification testing, and then there has to be a public type trial. And so, as you can imagine, trying to get all that done in 12 months is difficult, given it took us nearly a year to get the SASIS certified, and in the middle of that, there was also a government shutdown. So, that can happen. So, like I said, those are the things that have to happen at a very high level, so people can make their own determinations as to the likelihood of meeting the end of the year next year without my pontificating on it. But I'd say the end of the year next year is pretty aggressive, but certainly by the end of the year the following year.
Great, exciting. How about, are you guys still looking for more industry involvement? And if so, how can stakeholders get involved?
Great question, and absolutely, the more hands that can lift this, the lighter is the lifting. So people have been joining the Alliance or the WinnForum, a lot as a result of this. So if you want to join the WinnForum and participate in the WinnForum's efforts, they could contact you or Lee Pucker or me, although I would put them in touch with you and Lee anyhow, and just ask to join. And we have done a lot of things to help people participate. So for example, we are one of the things the WinnForum has that other standards development organizations don't necessarily have is the facility to participate as an observer. The main difference between observer is it doesn't cost anything, but so because you don't have, and you don't get a vote. So because you don't get a vote, it means you can't actually submit contributions. But what you can do is submit contributions through somebody who is a full member. And so a lot of people have been submitting contributions that way. And if the contributions are valuable to the effort, then that's perfectly fine. You just don't get a chance to vote on it, and it goes through the whole voting process of the Alliance, which is set up in accordance with direct guidance on how you do SDOs. So you can participate in the WinnForum that way, and all the work the WinnForum does will be standards related. So we'll be producing standard specifications, technical guidances. So it'll have the imprimatur of that type of standards type activity. You could also join the Wi-Fi. Now, and so the WinnForum is dealing with this primarily from the standpoint of the AFC, and it really only the AFC. Now, there's some things that are a little bit different than that. There is some interest to participate with some of the other unlicensed folks as they are out there, and they're thinking about joining the forum as well. But it's mostly to inform the AFC. If you want to participate on the device side, if you're interested in Wi-Fi, you can join the Wi-Fi Alliance. The participation in the Wi-Fi is a little bit more regulated by the Alliance themselves, not regulated by the government or anything. But I don't know that you can participate if you're not a full member. But you can check with the Wi-Fi Alliance, and if you want to do that, you can contact either Eric Figueroa, who's the president. He probably is the right guy to contact. Edgar Figueroa. So those are some of the ways to participate, or you can just join the multi-stakeholder group. Anybody can join the multi-stakeholder group. There are no limitations to joining. It's wide open. So if you just want to participate and if you have some interest in this, you can certainly participate as an observer there. Or if you want to really get engaged, you can participate in any of the work streams. So there's many paths into this party. So those are just a few.
Yeah, and the multi-stakeholder group meets, is it monthly, and then your work streams are about weekly?
That's right. The multi-stakeholder group is meeting about monthly, and then the work streams are meeting. The cadence on them is about bi-weekly, but some of the meetings don't occur if there's no contributions. And since we're early into this, you would expect to be a dearth of contributions, and so some of the meetings haven't happened. So, for example, I'm co-chairing the work stream 2, which is the data, and I put out a call for contributions last week, and we haven't gotten any. So we don't have a meeting cadence set up, but as soon as there are contributions and interest, we will establish a meeting cadence, which would probably be bi-weekly. So it probably would not be any less frequently than bi-weekly, and then no more frequently than weekly. And that's for the multi-stakeholder group. The WinnForum meetings are they're a lot more regular than that. And like I said, if you want to participate in the WinnForum, the steering group meets bi-weekly, the interference group meets weekly, and the data group meets bi-weekly as well. So and then the plenary is on there bi-weekly, but like I said, we'll cancel that if there's been enough technical activity going on where we don't need to meet.
Great. Okay, and I'll include links for all that in the show notes.
Great.
So thank you so much for meeting with me today, Mark. I appreciate it, and good luck moving forward.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure, and thanks for all the work you do. You kind of keep us honest and keep us on track. So you guys are really love you guys, and thanks for all you do.
Oh, thanks, Mark.
You're welcome.
All right. You have a great day.
You too. Thanks, Steph. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.